In today's video, I want to discuss a topic that's usually kind of at the top of everybody's list when it comes to buying a home. That's affordability. And what does affordability look like, and what factors go into affordability? So stick around. Let me know your thoughts and comments. And as always, if you like the information, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. So on the outside looking in, there truly are a lot of factors that go into the term affordability. And some of those factors include your income, your debt to income ratios, the interest rate, supply and demand, the different down payments and loan structures. Don't forget about property taxes, insurance, private mortgage insurance, even your credit score. And this is just some to name a few. And even though I'm going to touch a little bit on those, there's really a handful of other areas I want to discuss in this video on why affordability might not currently be a thing. Not what goes into it, but why it's not an affordability issue right now. There's a lot of parts that are moving behind the scenes that people don't know. So jumping into the first area I want to discuss, and that is how many homes or what percentage of homes in the US actually have a mortgage on them. You'd be surprised to know that roughly 60% of homes actually have a mortgage, which means 40% of the homes are owned free and clear. To put that more into a volume amount or quantitative amount, that means roughly 35 million homes in the United States are owned free and clear, and 48 million homes still have a mortgage. Now, to break that down a little bit further, and this goes into the affordability, is what people don't understand is the biggest people that have the bulk of the mortgages are baby boomers. And they either own them free and clear, or they've been paying on them for 20, if not pushing 30 years. Now, what does that mean? Well, so statistically, a person moves every 5 to 7 years. However, those statistics are for much younger demographics. Your older demographic doesn't typically move, but once every 15 to 20 years. Thus meaning that all those baby boomers eventually, sooner than later most likely, are going to be looking at downsizing or moving on to the next phase of life. Now, what does that also mean? Well, eventually there's going to be a flood in the market of inventory, but currently inventory is not high. Inventory has slowly been creeping back up due to new construction, but not really on the resale side. Now, surprising tidbit about those houses. The average homeowner across the entire United States is sitting on $300,000 in equity. Now, take that into consideration. We're in central Iowa. The average home just now bridged the price tag of about $340,000. Thus meaning you have to take the entire country, but almost every home in the Iowa area, on average, is going to be virtually paid for to put those numbers into perspective. So another piece as to why a large demographic either A, already owns their home free and clear, or B, has a much easier time with affordability outside the fact of inflation. I don't want to go down that road. Yes, housing prices have not stayed parallel or even close to income, which we will dive into that in a little bit later in this video. But back in the day, most your home buyers, first time included, put a much larger down payment percentage-wise. Now, what does that equate to? Well, personally, I'm going to tell you that the average homeowner that I help, unless they're moving up or have a house to sell so they have equitable stance to move forward into the next property, the average homeowner is only 5 to 8% down moving forward within their purchase, because that is where the affordability side has come in, or the thought process of put less down for whatever the reason may be. So the second key factor that goes into this is the mortgage rate, the interest rate. Where are we at? Well, as of this week, mortgage rates are at a 3-year low. Sounds phenomenal, right? We just broke below 6%. In reality, we're at 5.99. Now, what does that mean realistically for you? Well, yes, it is technically a low interest rate when you're borrowing money for a 30-year time frame. That is a very low return for an investor, total transparency. But what it also means is statistically, the bulk of people in the US, not bulk, the bulk was the free and clear side. So the bulk of people that carry a mortgage, right? So we're back into that 60% or roughly 48 million people. The bulk of those people, 52% of those people have a sub 4% interest rate. So what does that mean? So that means if they want to buy a different property, not only are they going to be eating the cost of the appreciation, yes, they're going to have appreciation in their current home to sell, but they're going to pay that same appreciation percentage wise typically in the home they're looking to buy. So they're going up in value, but they're also increasing their interest rate. And as you go up in value, that small number, that interest rate number, that 5.99%, makes a world, and I mean a world of difference on the monthly payment on what somebody is paying. To shine some light on what the difference is, I pulled the national average mortgage, and that national average price is $414,900, and that was in Q4 of 2025, published by NAR. If you were to take that home price with the difference of 3 years ago interest rate and today, so remember we're at a 3-year low, they would have been equal. At the very peak, we were almost a 7.5% interest rate. What type of money does that actually free up for you? For easy math, the round number is $250. $250 in a payment difference for you if you bought at the peak versus buying now the exact same home. So what does that do for you in today's world? Well, you've got one of two options. Either you have a cheaper mortgage rate, or you look at it as the ability to buy a home of a higher caliber for the same monthly price tag. Another factor of affordability is supply and demand. If you watch my weekly update on the market conditions here in central Iowa, you'll realize that we have been losing roughly 200 houses of inventory every week versus what's new coming on, including new construction, and what is being sold or pulled off the market for whatever reason. That trend has followed for roughly 8 weeks. Within those 8 weeks, effectively, you've lost 1,600 properties on the market. Well, when we are down to 3,800 as of Monday of this week, that is a huge number difference. And what does that do? Well, supply and demand. As supply goes down, and we're flooding the market with more buyers because interest rates have come down, thus meaning your demand has gone up. When demand goes up, unfortunately, it usually correlates to higher price tags, which then means if you didn't get in the boat or on the boat, or at least on the dock, you potentially have lost a great opportunity to buy a house at a discounted rate as well as a discounted price, as prices will ultimately go up due to the demand structure. So I wanted to give you some national statistics as well here in the US. And as far as the building is going, new construction wise, it's estimated that we need somewhere around 1.7 million units built per year. And we're actually only building about 1.3. So every year we're coming up short on the low side by 250,000 properties a year, 250,000 properties short from keeping up with the population growth. That's going to tell you how driven the supply and demand market is going to continue to tighten. And these numbers have been around for a while, and it started decades ago. So I wanted to go back to the statement earlier about the income difference between, say, 35 years ago and today. So the average income in 1990 was just at $30,000 per household. Correlating that to 2025 numbers, the average household income is $74,000. So about a 2.5 times increase over the course of 35 years. Now, what has changed as far as the home cost difference in the same 35 years? To answer the average home price in 1990, it would have been about $105,000 to $110,000. If you recall up above, I quoted that the average home price now in the US is about $415,000. So let's comfortably say it's increased 400 or four times, not 400, sorry about that, four times in price, but yet the income has only two and a half. So to be statistically accurate, the incomes have not kept up with the price tags of homes. So, with all this being said, just primarily on the income versus the price tag of the home, I also touch base on how today's home buyers are putting a much smaller down payment onto things. Ultimately, it is becoming an affordability problem. And a lot of it is due to the price tag actually of the house. Because when I was pulling these stats, you got to remember that on a national scale, the 1980s was the most expensive you ever borrowed money to buy a house. And it was at 19.2% at an all time high. So when we correlate that back to a 6% interest rate, we are phenomenal. The difference is the price of the actual property or asset. And how does that correlate back? Well, before you were able to put a much larger down payment, which is where the myth of 20% down comes into play, because back in the pre-era of today's current mortgages, believe it or not, a 15-year mortgage was the norm. A 20% down payment was the norm. And in order to create affordability within housing, we've had to stretch it from a 15-year note to a 30-year mortgage as well. If you remember in one of my previous videos, I did mention the thought of a 50-year mortgage and what it actually didn't save you over the course of those 50 years. So with all this information laid out, you really have four different areas of buyers. You've got the ones that are free and clear, that they're probably not looking to sell and move up anytime soon right now. You've got the people that have a large equitable stance, but are carrying a mortgage at a very less interest rate. And or also, remember, we had a housing boom during COVID where the average appreciation across the country was 16% over the course of about 18 months. You've got those people. And then you've got the third group, which are people that might have bought within the last year or two, which are actually at a higher interest rate. And they might be looking to sell, but they haven't really lived there long enough to create equity. And then there's people like you that's looking to buy a house right now. And you're sitting here scratching your head and the fact of, is now a good time to buy? Historically, outside of the housing crisis of 08, there really wasn't a bad time to buy. And even if you would have bought during 08, as long as you've held the property long enough, I promise you anybody that bought in 08 would have made a ton of money from then till now. So is there truly ever a bad time to buy? Not really. It's when does the time fit your needs to buy? The key takeaways I want you to take from this video today is, out of all real estate that's out there that is residential, roughly 62% of it is owned as owner-occupant, leaving the other 38 to investors. Out of that percentage, roughly 60% of the houses have mortgages on them. Out of that percentage, 52% or more are sub 4% interest rate. There's a lot of different numbers that go into affordability. And I know I touched on 11 to begin with, and we didn't really touch base on any of those, but you can find them in other videos that I've created. The big factor to affordability is make the choice when the choice is right for you. Don't force yourself into being a homeowner if you are not mentally and financially ready. Because right now, if you're renting or living in your parents' basement, it's so easy to call somebody because you have a burned out light bulb, or you have a leaky toilet or sink, or whatever the case may be, versus taking on these phantom costs on top of the actual cost of the home. That's called true cost. And what is true cost in a home? Well, that's a topic for a whole different video, but I'm happy to sit and talk to anybody that wants to know. So if you found today's video any way educational or at least entertaining or held your attention, whatever it is, please like and follow. It's going to help me reach more people and hopefully educate the next home buyer that you might know.